In this video, I'm going to give you my thoughts on the Orvis guide for prospecting for trout. Stay tuned. What's up everybody? Todd Welch here from the High Altitude Brands and the Backcountry Trail. And today we're going to dig into the Orvis guide to prospecting for trout, how to catch fish when there's no hatch to match. Now, this book was written from the perspective of a fly fisherman. I am more of a spin fisherman. I do a little bit of fly fishing, but not much. I prefer spin fishing. I picked up this book anyways because reading through the titles of the chapters, I knew it would contain a lot of really good information, and I was not let down. You can see from all of the notes and sticky notes that I put in here, there's a lot of good stuff. So you're gonna wanna stay tuned, check out this video. We're gonna dig into this a little bit and show you why you should pick up this book, The Orvis Guide to Prospecting for Trout. Now, before we get started, down below, make sure you click on subscribe and click that little bell to get notified of more videos like this, from fishing tips to product reviews, how to maintain your equipment, all sorts of different things here at High Altitude Brands we throw out there for you. So subscribe, click the notification to get more videos like this. And while you're down there, leave a comment, let me know what kind of fish you like to go for when you're out fishing. And if you're a trout fisherman, that's why you're watching this probably, let me know what your preferred kind of trout species is, whether it's brook, brown, rainbow, cutthroat, golden, whatever the case may be. Let me know down there in the comments. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the book. All right, so as I already mentioned, I really ended up liking this book a lot. It's got a lot of really good information in it. It's really easy to digest and follow through and even skip around to jump to the parts that you're really interested in right now. But I sat down and read this in one evening. It's a really easy read, but it's packed full of information. Now, the first half of the book is information, and the way they go over it is through the life of a trout. So basically they're following this one particular trout, following its feeding habits, where it goes throughout the day, what to look for if it's in different parts of the streams and things like that. So it really turns it from not being a study book per se like you read in school to more of almost like a story that you're learning from. So it really makes it easy to digest and just keep reading through it and learn the information from it. The author, Tom Rosenbauer, did a really good job in that sense to make it very easy to read. Now, another good thing that I really liked in here is there's a lot of good information, but there's also a lot of pictures as well. So pictures like this guy here, these are some of my notes that I took. So you got color pictures, but then even better are these graphics, these illustrations that they put in here, showing you the different actions of a fish or how to read the water and things like that. So you can get a visual representation on top of reading to really help you learn and understand the concepts that they're teaching. This book is great for people just starting out, but as well as more advanced people. You're going to pick something up from reading this. Now, if you're a spin fisherman, the first half of the book is where you're going to want to stick to. So I read through pretty much around page 80. The rest of the book, it's a total of 191 pages. So the second half of the book, or a little more of the second half of the book, digs into flies and things like that. So if you're a fly fisherman, you're gonna love that and dig into that. But if you're a spin fisherman, you can stop once you start getting into where they're teaching you about flies. With that said, you could probably keep going, because I actually read the chapter on woolly buggers, which, if you're not familiar with woolly buggers, think of it kind of like a jig, a weighted jig that a fly fisherman throws out there and strips in, reels in through the water, kind of like what we do with a spinner. But the author, what he was talking about was getting a weighted woolly bugger tying it to your fishing line, and then getting a smaller nymph, which is a smaller little bug pattern in fly fishing, tying about 1 foot or 1.5 feet of line below the hook of the woolly bugger, and then tying your fly onto that. Because what that looks like is you're pulling through maybe a larger minnow or a crayfish the fish might think it is, but if they're not interested in that, that'll get their attention, and then they're going to see this little guy coming right behind it, so they might bite that. I'll throw the snippet of the video in here of the trout that I caught. I went out and bought that woolly bugger and a nymph, hooked it up, went fishing on the Provo River, and I ended up catching about a 18-inch rainbow trout on the tiny little nymph that was following up the woolly bugger. So it worked, it was really awesome, and I learned it in this book. So thank you for that. I got a lot of adrenaline pumping when I caught that fish. I'll put a picture of it right up here if I haven't already. Really good time. So just that alone paid for the price of this book, with adrenaline alone of catching that big fish in a fast moving river. All right, so the first chapter in this book is how trout feed. So what they really dug into in this, and they told it in the story form, as I said, was how the trouts feed in a stream as well as in lakes. What they do, like for example, how they're gonna sit. So you can see this stream behind me. We've got some fast flowing water, and then you can see, like right here, we have fast flowing water that's coming on the inside bend of this creek right here. On the inside here, we have slower moving water. It's kind of swirling around right inside here. And so what's going to happen is the trout are not going to sit in the water, the fast flowing water, because they're going to want to do as little effort as possible to get their food. So they're going to sit over in this slower moving water here so they can conserve energy and their food is coming by them. That way they can just wait for the food, dart out, grab it, and go back. And that's basically how a trout is going to feed. So that's just a little bit of what's in this book on how trout feed. It really digs into all the aspects of the stream and goes into lakes as well. So really good chapter to check out in the book. Now chapter 2 is rich and poor trout streams. So with that, it tells you how to approach a stream depending on if it's got lots of food or if it doesn't have a lot of food, if there's a hatch of bugs going on, depending on the conditions of the stream. So it helps you read the conditions of the stream and really dig into it to know how a river or a stream or a lake, like the lake behind me here, is going to be fishing. How warm the water is, how cool the water is, how much food there is, what types of food, and things like that. So it really helps you understand how to approach a stream before you even go there, to research, to understand how you're going to approach it and fish the stream. The next chapter, chapter 3, reading the water. Again, the way I showed you earlier, I was reading the water right here behind me, looking for those slow areas next to the fast areas, looking for cover that trout can go to quickly if a bird flies overhead, because they don't want to get picked off. They could technically be sitting right in the middle of a relatively shallow river or stream that you may not even think they would be, and you'd normally walk right by. But if there's just barely enough depth and food going by and there's structure near where they can take off and run and hide, there definitely could be trout there. So that's an example of what they teach you in that chapter 3. Really good information, definitely recommend it. All right, and then the chapters from there, the 4th chapter is on streamers. Streamers are like the woolly bugger that I talked to you about. I read that chapter, picked up that tip, caught a beautiful rainbow trout, as you've seen earlier. Then it goes into nymphs. Nymphs are real small bugs that live in every stream. I recommend go to a stream and pick up a rock, and you're going to find bugs underneath it. Those are bugs that the trout are eating when they get knocked loose and the trout grab them, or maybe when they start coming up to the surface to hatch and fly out of the water, they're going to be eating them at that point as well. So that's what nymphs are. A lot of fishermen will fish with nymphs. A lot of fly fishermen will fish with nymphs. Let's check out a rock. Alright, so I grabbed this rock, and you can already see there's one bug right there. Here's another one that's moving around. Not moving at the moment. There we go. If I get my hand close to it, you can see them moving around. Another one back here. Those are all little bugs, little nymphs that live in these rivers. So that's a good way to find what the local trout are eating. You can flip it up, and if you're seeing a lot of bugs like that, there's a lot for the trout to eat in these little streams, for like this one, for example. So lots of little nymphs live in these rivers and creeks and lakes that the trout are eating. All right, and then the next one is wet flies. And so wet flies are basically exactly that. They're those nymphs that have hatched, and they're going to be basically wet. So they're going to be in the water, under the water a little bit, but near the surface of the water. Dry flies are going to be flies that are floating on top of the water that trout come up and grab. A lot of fun to fish. Of course, if you're a fly fisherman, you already know that. That's kind of the top of the art for fly fishermen, is catching trout on dry flies, because it is often the most difficult, because you have to be at a stream or a lake when there's a hatch going on typically to get the trout to come up and grab that food from the surface, because if they're getting plenty of food underneath the water, they don't need to come up. It's safer down underneath the water than it is coming up where a bird can grab them. So the last chapter you're going to want to read, whether you're a fly fisherman or a spin fisherman, you're going to want to check out the chapter on approach. So approach is basically going to talk about not only how you're coming up to a stream, being careful to read the water and not scaring the fish, but also how to approach a day of fishing so that you're prepared and you know what you're getting into when you're going to the stream. So all in all, really good book for spin fishermen or fly fishermen. I highly recommend it. I'm going to have an affiliate link down below. You can pick up this book on Amazon at no additional cost to you. If you buy through that link, we'll get a small cut, and it'll help us make more videos like this for you, and we really appreciate it. And also check out the links down below on the High Altitude Brands telescopic fishing rod. We have giveaways for that quite often. Check that out down below. We'll have a link to that rod as well, so you can check it out. And then also lots of other videos in our channel. If you haven't already, click subscribe, click that little bell to get notified, click over to our channel and check out all the other awesome videos I've filmed for you guys. We filmed for you fishing tips, product reviews, and lots of other things. So other than that, this is Todd Welch with the High Altitude Brands signing off. Tight lines, everybody.